Hey, this is RJ May, and you're watching Mr. Mario 2011.
Hey guys, what is going on? It is me, Mr. Mar, and I just kind of had this random commentary idea that I want to talk about, but I wanted to talk about update and game downloads, how big these games are getting, and really if it's viable and if people are ready for these big updates. Now, to me, what is a big update? What is a big game? Any update that is bigger than 2 gigabytes for a game is big to me. Any game that is bigger than 20 gigabytes is a big game, in my opinion. And there's games that are coming out that are gradually, taking up 40, 50. I mean, the requirements for Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC just came out, and that game takes up a whopping 65 gigabytes. Now, here's the thing, hard drive space is very cheap now. I mean, you can get a 2 or 4 terabyte hard drive for cheap. I mean, the last hard drive I got, I think I paid $100 for an external 4 terabyte hard drive. And normally, external drives are more expensive than internal drives. Although normally, if it's like an internal drive I'm going to put in, I do normally pay a bit more. Reason being is that that's going to be my important data, that's going to be my drive that gets used and abused, and I need it to last. And when it comes to my data, I don't want to mess around too much, so I don't mind splurging a bit more on my memory. Normally what I get for my internal hard drives, I get like a Western Digital Caviar Black, which in case you don't know, those Caviar Black drives never go on sale, because it's some of the best quality, at least consumer grade hard drives that you can get. But, that's all there is to it. And I really like Western Digital compared to other brands. Now, when it comes down to your space and all that, it's even happening on these new systems. And even on the old systems a bit. I mean, you had games on the Xbox 360, for example, that were taking up 3-4 discs. If you think I'm lying, look at games like Lost Odyssey, like, what was the other one? Wolfenstein The New Order, that just took up 4 discs. And then, all the new systems, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, there are games coming out that take up 40, 50 gigabytes of space. Now, that's not really what concerns me too much. If you get on a disc, cool, you let it install. But it's the big updates and a whole nother thing. I can make a whole nother commentary on this, but it's the QA factor of it. Like, if a game just came out, literally it just came out, and I have to download a 15 gigabyte update, where was the QA testing on that? That's what I want to know. But that's a whole nother commentary. That's a whole nother topic I can talk about. What I want to talk about now is the actual download speeds that people are having and all that stuff. Now, in case you don't know, I will let you know of my setup. I currently live in an apartment. I've been living here since January of 2013, so now it's been 2 years, and it's been a great 2 years, honestly. But my apartment setup, I have my internet included in my rent. And my apartment, it is not a dorm, it is an actual apartment, but it is an apartment that goes through the university that I am attending. And because of that, I run off the university's internet, and I have to comply to their rules and their restrictions. However, the internet itself, hardwired, is 100 megabits down and up. Both ways, 100 megabits down and up. And the ping is pretty low. The ping is normally like less than 10, maybe, if I'm being generous, less than 15 millisecond ping, which is very responsive. Very, very nice internet. I really like the internet here. So, like, literally for me to download a 10 gigabyte update, that's nothing for me. Like, that's literally, I hit download and I'll go take a dump and come back and it's done. It's more than done because I probably sat there on Reddit or on Twitter way too long. But you all know what I mean. That's nothing to me. This past summer, though, summer of 2014, I had an internship up in Illinois, and I was in a apartment complex that was a lot like the same, because the company I went through, they would lease with these apartments, do a special deal with them, and I didn't have to pay rent because of it. However, I did stay in an apartment complex that was very friendly with our local university, and because of that, we used the university's internet. Now, the university does not have the best internet, but then they filter it over to our apartment building, and the apartment buildings are very cheap, and they cap the internets. And for example, I'll put it like this. Every single apartment had 5 Ethernet ports in it, but only 4 Ethernet ports could get activated at once, because they did not have big enough switches or enough switches to have all 5 Ethernet ports enabled for every single apartment. Like, that's how cheap these guys were. They didn't want to update their infrastructure or anything like that. And the internet limit, oh my god, the internet limit. The only forgivable thing was that it was limited per MAC address. So the nice thing was, that meant, for example, right here, if I am maxing out a download on my computer, that means my internet on my Xbox or my PlayStation will be slow. Over there, I brought my Switch over, and it was per MAC address, which meant that if I was maxing out on my computer, I could max out on my Xbox, I could max out on my PlayStation, on everything at once. However, that was the only redeeming factor. Outside of that, there was actually two things I'll talk about. One thing, they didn't allow you to do a custom DNS server. I was actually using Google's DNS, and my laptop and my desktop would not connect to the internet properly until I used the default DNS gateways. But that's a whole nother thing again. The second major thing was the upload and download speeds. Now, just like here, the upload and download speeds matched each other. However, guess what my upload and download were? 2.5 megabits a second. And if you don't know what that is, because there's some people get megabytes and megabits confused with one another, there's 8 bits in 1 byte. So according to normal terms, I guess people that would be, normal download terms, this meant I was uploading and downloading at about 300 kilobytes per second. I dealt with that for 3 months. Now, 300 kilobytes, this was fast 10 years ago. I'm not even exaggerating. I remember when it was like 2003, 2004, 2005, I was ecstatic to get 350 kilobytes per second on a download. However, in 2014, 2015, this is not fast at all. It is very slow. Do you know how slow it was? Well, first off, I went from downloading right here at my apartment, I went from downloading about an 8 gigabyte game or a 10 gigabyte game in about 15 minutes to going over there, and it was about 1 gigabyte an hour. If I had it only allocated to that, for example, if I had my computer only dedicated to downloading a game, it would download at best 1 gigabyte per hour. So if I had a 10 gigabyte game, it would take me 10 hours to download. If I had a 5 gigabyte game, it would take me 5 hours to download. If I had, you know what I mean. You know what I mean by now. Just do the math on that. 1 gig means 1 hour. That's really all it is. That was terrible, especially with the new systems, because as you all might know, I brought my systems up there. I had my PC, which games on there are huge, as well as updates. I had my Wii U, my 360, my PlayStation 4, and my Xbox One. I had all my systems with me, and even my portable systems. And there were entire games. There were times I could not play a game. I remember there was one night, I started, actually that entire summer, I don't like running my systems in standby mode because one, the Xbox, I don't like the Kinect listening to me all the time, and two, I just don't like them, running in that low power mode because it just wears down your system. I've actually talked with one of my good friends about this before, and we both agreed. It's like we believe when you are running something, whether it be a computer or anything like that, that is just life ticking away off that. So, we like to conserve our electronics. Some people say, for example, with a computer, they say turning your computer off and on can kill your hard drive. Well, you know what? Hard drives are cheap enough to replace anyways. But enough of that. What I'm talking about here is I started running my systems in standby mode because I wanted them to download their updates while I was sleeping and while I was gone at work. There was one night I remember I wanted to relax a bit. So I turned on my Wii U. There was a system update. Had to wait about 30 minutes for it. So I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and check out what's going on the PlayStation. PlayStation, turn that on. System update there. Have to wait about 20 minutes for it. Okay, let's see what's going on the Xbox. Turn on my Xbox One. 2 gigabyte update. Had to download that. Oh, and because I'm in the preview program, there were updates that were coming out all the time. So a 2 gigabyte update, that meant for 2 hours I couldn't use my Xbox. Oh, and the worst part about that was, for some reason, the update kept failing. So I had to keep retrying it. So I would have to download a little bit of the update at a time because it would download like 400 megabytes and then stop. So then I had to reset the system and then I had to download it again, but it would already have that 400 megabyte cache. So it would download another like 300 megabytes on top of it and then stop. So I couldn't even do anything. I was paralyzed with all my systems for a little bit. I couldn't run anything like that. It was terrible for that time. That's why after that, I started running all my systems in standby mode. But even after that, there were big updates that I would have to go through, anything like that. One big example of this, Sniper Elite 3, for example, I rent games through GameFly. I actually had it lined up on my GameFly list for Xbox One, and I ended up removing it. You know why? Because I saw an article online before the game came out that said it is going to have a day one update clocking in at weighing in, at 13 gigabytes. Now, remember when I said my internet connection was essentially 1 gigabyte per hour? So that meant the day I got the game, I couldn't even play it that day. Because normally I want to make sure a game finishes updating and all that stuff. And even with the Xbox One, you could actually download the updates, and at a certain point in time, it says it's ready to play, and you could just play it like offline or in the background while it's still downloading that update. But still, like, I really don't like doing that too much. I like it to completely finish, and then it's good to go. Now, I will lay out my plan, okay? I would wake up, I had to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was working a 8 to 4 o'clock or 4:30 job, depending on what it was. So this is how my schedule was, right? I would wake up at about 6:45 in the morning, take a shower, get dressed, eat my breakfast, drive into work, get off work at, let's say, 4 o'clock, go over to the gym, work out a little bit, hang out with some friends, come home at maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock. And because I had to get up so early, I had from about 7 o'clock to 10:30, if I was really pushing it, 11 or 11:30, if I hated myself, until midnight. So I had anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of free time, some days to do what I wanted to do. That meant I could not play the game within that time period. I couldn't play the game within that 3 to 5 hour time period. I would have had to let the game update overnight. I would have had to do that. It would have been terrible. And I did that several times. I had to do it because that was the only thing I could do. I had to leave my computer on, my laptop. I mean, at one point, I hooked up my laptop out in the living room and used my laptop as my download slave. So I kept that thing on for days on end, just downloading things while I was sleeping, while I was at work, while I was out of the apartment, whatever it was. And the funny thing is, my connection at that point in time was still better than many others in the US and around the world. But the internet connection was also slow enough where I was actually in the PlayStation Now beta at the time, which you had to get invited into, especially kinda. It was more closed. And this was the first beta, the beta where everything was available for free. And guess what? I couldn't play a damn thing on there. You know why? Because I tried booting up a game and it said, "We're sorry. Your internet connection needs to be at least 3 megabits a second to play this game. Your internet connection is 2.5 megabits a second. You cannot play this game." Now, the funny thing is, on a slow connection like that, you can still play games. I was playing mini games online. I was playing Destiny. I was playing Titanfall. I was playing several games with low ping, and I didn't have any issue with lag at all. All my games played online perfectly, but that download was terrible. Oh, and because I was doing the YouTube thing at the same time, I actually kind of take pride in this. I rendered out all my videos, I remember, that summer at 1080p. I didn't turn down any of my quality settings, but you bet your ass that I used every video I made, I copied over to a flash drive, hooked it up to my laptop, and used my laptop as my dedicated upload slave as well, too. So I would render out a few videos and then have my laptop upload for the next, 12 hours. But the sad thing is, again, as I said, I didn't even have it that bad compared to many other people. And my connection was at least reliable. I remember it only went out one time that entire summer. So over the course of 3 months, the internet cut out one time, from what I remember when I was using it. And it just cut out for maybe 20 minutes or something like that. It wasn't even that bad. But with that, I need to ask, are we ready for these big games? Because a lot of places worldwide do not have the proper infrastructure to set this up. There are many places, as I said, worldwide, but even I'm thinking specific places like South America and all that. You might have some places like businesses that have this 56K connection dripping down to the entire business there. There are places that just are not equipped for that infrastructure. They can't handle this, and they cannot handle big updates like that. So, I don't know what we can do, honestly. I really don't. And I hope that burp didn't really catch too big on mic, but whatever it is. But that is my little rant about this. These big updates, these games. And I did a commentary almost like this before. I don't want to make it sound like I'm ripping off or recycling commentaries, but I was asking, are we ready for digital distribution? And that's one big thing. It's the big thing about digital distribution. Sure, there's the DRM, there's the rights, there's things like that, but the downloads, the big sizes. That's a big thing. And they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember, for example, like Halo Master Chief Collection, that game is like 50 gigabytes on its own. Something like that. It's like 40, 50 gigabytes on its own. And then the day one update that had the multiplayer was 15 gigs. And even just now recently, I came back into town from being on vacation, being out of town for 3 weeks. Booted up Master Chief Collection, 3.2 gigabyte update. These are not big, small updates. These are big updates. These are big things that are being changed. It's kind of scary. But anyways, I'm going to sign off before I keep rambling on about this. But let me know what you think of this. Because personally, I think we still need to come a long way before we have this, proper and universal. Especially because there are several people, there are several places in the US and around the world that have data caps, that have speed caps, and as I said, one big thing is they don't have the infrastructure available for these big games and updates. Anyways, again, let me know what you think. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you for watching, everyone.